When I decided that I wanted to intentionally teach about power, I was pretty worried about it. It's a very triggering term. It's triggering for me. I mean, I was elected to the city of Vancouver as a councillor. I was the first permanent deputy mayor. I come from extremely humble beginnings. I was very much raised in a household where I was taught to believe we didn't have power and that we should not aspire. Like, it would be crazy to believe we could have power, and even if we could, that was wrong. Like, we shouldn't want that. That power was something that did bad things to people, and I shouldn't want to do bad things to people, essentially. And also, in my, leaving home and living on the streets for a period of time, just saw, what I call the pointy end of stick of power being used on me and against people I cared about deeply. So the idea that I would ever hold on to these titles that exemplified a negative view of power that I held, I mean, that's tough, right? And now teaching about power, I have to constantly struggle with my own heart around it. Not my head. My head is very convinced that power literacy is essential if we're going to build a robust democracy, a more robust democracy. So yeah, this idea of teaching power was, when you want to do a new class, I didn't go to university. My one experience at university was a year-long fellowship at Harvard, which is a weird way to do it, and especially when you're talking about power. And so I'm in this institution, academia, where power is very much a live and real, tangible thing within the system, and thinking about, how do I navigate this? And one of the key questions is, who's going to take a course on power? Do I want those people in my class, essentially, when you have a self-selecting? So one of the ways I buffered against that was by making sure purpose is front and center, and have had people drop it when it's clear that purpose and power need to go hand in hand together. So then, of who's left after that, who's ripe for that discussion, I would say so I've been teaching it for 5 years now, variety of context. I haven't kept numbers, but the last time I counted, it was well over 1,000 people who'd taken a course or done a workshop or something like that. I've only had one person just fundamentally refuse and say, it's impossible that I have power. I came to this because I wanted to understand the people who do have power, and I just kept saying, that's not... you have power. The fact that you're here asserting you don't have power tells me you have power, right? You have the power to own that powerless identity. That's what you're bringing forward into this space. Anyway, so other than that, what I've found is that a lot of people originally come to it because they kind of want, I would say, a manual, that's a really rough estimate, but they want some step-by-steps that they can do. But they very quickly come to really embrace the idea that it's more about a personal journey, that until they understand their own power, they can't understand other people's power, and therefore it's about how you bring your self-awareness into the kind of more head understanding, the intellectual process. I've found the people who most quickly do that are people who have some background in self-reflection, because that, again, having to unlearn the idea that it's all about your head, and that if you can't integrate your heart and your identity and your concept of self into learning, it's pretty tough to bring forward power learning.